So hello, everybody. It's really lovely to be here with you. Just going to share my screen. And I'm going to ask you all to put your videos on if you wouldn't mind, because, hang on, bear with me. It's so much nicer for me to talk to actual people than talk to strangers and just talk to blank faces. So thank you. I really, really appreciate that. So, oh God, I love this conversation. We are going to be talking about relationships today. And I, of course, because it's what I love to do, I am going to kick this conversation off with a question. What I'd love you to do is to think of a relationship that isn't really working for you right now. Just, you don't have to share it with everyone. Especially if they're on the call too, but think of a relationship that isn't working for you right now. And what I'd love you to do is to put into the chat just a couple of words that describe that relationship. And the wonderful Laura is going to read those words out to me. So just pick some words that describe that relationship right now. And Laura, if you can just share the words coming through to me, that would be really helpful.
Yes, of course. So, combative, draining, distant, toxic, tense, hard work, disconnected, difficult, contentious, hard work, and fighting against each other.
God, I tell you what,
is a theme that's coming up a lot.
I don't know about you, but for me, Laura, that absolutely got me in the chest when you even hear those words. So, okay, thank you. Brilliant words, not such great relationships, but brilliant words. I really appreciate that. So I have another question for you. And that is, what's the one thing that needs to change, do you believe? In that relationship, what needs to change? Again, put that in the chat.
Love the honesty there. Me is the first response we've had.
Who's that from?
That's from Jessica.
Jessica, we love that.
Transparency, communication and trust, listening, honesty. Great one from Dom, my perspective, listening, what I do.
Okay. We've got a very aware audience here, which is really, really cool. So I know a couple of people have just joined a few minutes late, and I just want to bring you up to speed because it's quite important that you do this too. You don't need to put the words in the chat. If you've just joined, I'd love you to think of a relationship that isn't really working for you. And then I would like you to ask yourself the question, what's the one thing that needs to change? So I think the bottom line is if we're in a relationship that isn't working and we want something different from that relationship, then something has to change. We all know that to be true. And that is why we're here today. We want to really understand how to create better relationships. So what's my aim? Well, my aim for our session this afternoon is to be a catalyst to your thinking. And I'm going to do that in 3 ways. I'm going to just share the top line in terms of what we need to know about hybrid working, the 3 building blocks of effective relationships, and how to make it work in a hybrid world. Now, I'm going to say right up front, this is not a tips and techniques session. There are millions of those out there on the internet, and you can go and watch endless videos on that. Instead, my aim is to take us deeper into the understanding of the nature of relationships and how they manifest in today's environment. So before I do that, I need to do 2 things to kick us off. First, just in case you don't know who I am, I need to tell you who I am. So my name is Elke Edwards. I'm the founder of Ivy House. Many, many moons ago, I believe I had to count it up actually, it was 1997. I founded and led a leading leadership development business in the UK. It was called Blue Sky. And as well as leading that business, which grew, we ended up working in 37 different countries, working with about 50% of the FTSE 100. I also spent a significant amount of my time as a coach and developer to senior leadership teams. And during that period of running Blue Sky, I became obsessed by change. What is it that creates behavioral change in an individual so that it can drive behavioral change in an organization? That became my obsession. And what I noticed was that there were a number of skills that, when mastered, made a game-changing difference, not only to the leaders that people became, but to the lives that they ended up leading. And so, of course, what happened is we redirected all of our efforts towards these skills. And of course, performance of the businesses went up. And that was great. That was great for us and great for the business and great for our clients. But one thing kept bugging me. And that was, if these skills can make such a game-changing difference to leaders and the lives they lead, then why are we waiting? Why is it only the most senior people get access to this kind of learning? That led me to change my life. We sold Blue Sky and we set up Ivy House. Now, Ivy House still works with a range of incredible organizations across pretty much every sector, but we work with their emerging and established talent. The aim is to bring these game-changing skills to people far sooner in their journey so that they can go on to be incredible leaders. If you've ever heard me speak before, you'll have heard me ask the question, how many extraordinary leaders do you know? And I've asked the question now for 15 years. I can tell you it's not enough. So our aim, Ivy House, is to absolutely nail getting that right. So when we ask you in a few years' time, you can say 20, 30, 40, 50, rather than the one or two that you're probably struggling to think about. So what is it we do? We run established and emerging talent programs. We run programs for underrepresented groups. And we also do work with the early in career and grad populations. We also run two different types of open programs. So that enables smaller organizations, or even actually we have some incredibly large organizations that put people on our open programs, because that enables them to create an external network of future leaders. Effectively, we are experts in behavioral change, talent, and leadership development. And we've won 7 awards for our work just in the last few years. We're so passionate about this, we also created a program for schools, for teachers to deliver. And we work with the total spectrum of schools, from the Eton colleges at one end to schools in some of the most disadvantaged areas of the country. And I've got to tell you, that work really, that makes our souls sing, because we are literally changing the lives of young people as we go. So that's who we are at Ivy House. Obviously, we'd love to talk to you if you have any interest in talent development, established talent development, or creating programs for any of those populations that we talked about. The other thing I need to talk to you about today is that we are going to have a Willy Wonka moment on this course, on this program today. And at the end of it, we are going to draw, I believe Laura is going to have the big responsibility of drawing a ticket for a fully funded place on one of our Life Leader programs. So stick around for that draw. Maybe you can use that for yourself or somebody within your organization. So let's kick off with the first of the 3 areas I wanted to cover. So what do we need to know about hybrid working? So we're here to talk about how to create real relationships in the hybrid work. And before we do that, I thought it was really important to remind ourselves of what that world really looks like. Now, I obviously could run a whole day on this. I could drown you in data. There is so much data out there, but that's not what we're here for. So what I wanted to do really is to pass on the headlines to you. So where are we now? Well, the most obvious thing, I guess, is hybrid is here to stay. But what we have to do is we have to shift from this idea of it being a challenge to being an opportunity. There really is this opportunity, effectively the way we work has been totally broken down, and we have to re-engineer the working day. And that's the opportunity, the working week, the working month. That's the opportunity in front of us. Already, a lot of good has come out of it. So there's a lot less commuting, we get more family time, we get more flexibility, we get time to concentrate without having to listen to the chatter in the office, and we have increased agency in many ways. But what we are also learning is that there is a lot to improve. So we need to think about how we use space, how we use technology, and how we use time. We need to really consider our leadership skill and capability, and are our leaders up to leading in this way? And then there's a heck of a lot of work to do around personal ownership and awareness. And this next stat blows my mind. So in the last 2 years, well-being has decreased from 74% to 30. In fact, it's 35%. I apologize. That is a typo. 35% in the last 2 years. So in the last 2 years, and that was 7 million data points. That's the decrease in well-being. And I genuinely believe that if we don't get well-being right, that is going to be the next crisis that we are looking at in the workplace. In fact, on that note, we are running an event in January on well-being. So sign up to that if this is something you want to get right in your organizations. The other thing we've lost a lot of is that incidental learning. It's that chat when you're working on something and you turn to your colleague and you say, hey, can you give me a hand on this? Or what do you think of this? Can I get your opinion on this? Or I'm just going to a meeting and this might be quite interesting for you. Why don't you come with me? We're struggling around community and that sense of belonging. And then we also have this perceived need for digital presenteeism. That's a very posh word for saying, when you nip to the loo and then all of a sudden somebody calls you on Teams or Zoom, you're like, oh my God, I've been at my desk for 4 hours. Why are they calling me now? It's that pressure to always be on. So that is there for us as well. So we've got a lot to improve. What does this actually mean? Well, the threat is talent retention, because of course, what we're seeing is when things aren't feeling right for individuals, they're looking to their organizations to put them right. And in many ways, they're right to look to their organization for part of that. There is also a massive ownership piece that we need to take account of. So there's a threat around talent retention. There is a threat around well-being, and there's naturally a threat around business performance if we don't crack it. The opportunities are amazing. The opportunities is to finally become brilliant at leadership, to become brilliant at creating effective teams and being a team player and creating healthy work environments. There's a poet, a British poet, I can't remember his name right now, but he says, can we stop fooling ourselves? We didn't have healthy work environments before. This is our opportunity now to create them. What the data tells us, the bottom line is the thing we all need to focus on is fulfillment. It's an interesting stat. I wonder how many of you actually measure fulfillment within your business. But let me tell you why this data comes out of the Global Culture Report from OC Tanner. This is what fulfillment gives people in work. Retention increases by 43%. Quality of work increases by 20%, employee satisfaction by 40%, an estimated tenure increases by 84%, and burnout decreases by 38%. I just want you to imagine for a moment the difference to your business if those stats were in play. Just imagine what that would mean for you. So, of course, the next question then is, what's the key lever in creating fulfillment? And it is, of course, relationships, and not just any kind of relationships, effective relationships, which brings me to the meat of our sandwich, which is the 3 building blocks of effective relationships. It would be really easy to jump to talk about relationships in a hybrid world, but the reality is the majority of people don't understand how to create an effective relationship in the first place. So I want to focus the majority of our time here on this. It's going to be key if we're going to get it right in the hybrid world. So what are the 3 building blocks? Well, this is the first. The key ingredient of a relationship is behavior. So let's imagine for a moment that I am in a relationship with my tall, handsome, kind, good-looking husband. And here he is. The only way he knows me is from the behavior I put into the space between us. And the only way he knows me, the other way. And the only way I know him is from the behavior he puts into the space between us. Now, I find it best if we imagine that the relationship is actually a cake. And, I'm putting in the ingredients of sugar, I don't know what you'd put in a cake. I don't bake very often, but sugar, flour, eggs, chocolate chips. And he is putting in ground glass and sludge and mud, the chances are we're not going to end up with a great cake. Now, let's imagine for a moment that he changes his ingredients and he puts in different ingredients, better ingredients. We are going to end up with a much better relationship. So what I want you to do for a moment is to think back to that relationship I asked you to think about in the beginning. If you joined us late, I asked everybody to think about a relationship that wasn't working for them right now. So think back to the relationship that isn't working. And I want to ask, in fact, if you get a piece of paper and a pen and draw a line down the middle, and on the one hand put you, and on the other hand put them, and the other column, think about, just list some of the behaviors that you are putting in and they are putting in. A behavior, by the way, is anything that you can see or hear. Okay? So just list some behaviors. I want you to just be courageously honest for a moment and put a couple of the behaviors that you are putting in to the space between you. What are you putting in? Put them on the chat so that Laura can share them with us.
Talking too much.
Sorry?
Talking too much has come through.
It's interesting.
Avoidance.
Good word.
Judgment. Judgment's come up twice actually, as has avoidance. Not showing enough interest. And Rowan said passive. Not sure that's a behavior, but I think that's a great addition.
Yeah, passive is a set of behaviors actually. So we have a set of passive behaviors. Brilliant.
We've got withdrawing, feedback, limited participation. I think that all goes with the kind of passive and avoidance.
Thank you. I love this group. I love the honesty here. This is brilliant. Thank you. So that's the first thing. The first thing is behavior is the ingredients for a relationship. If you put in bad ingredients, you're going to end up with a bad cake. You put in good ingredients, you're going to end up with a better cake. So if we want to create better relationships in the hybrid world, we need to think about the behavior we are putting in. And our behavior needs to lead us to outcomes. It always leads us to outcomes. So that brings me to the second building block of a great relationship. The second building block is that we always get a choice over the behavior we choose. So as we say in Ivy House, life is a series of events. One event hits us after another. You know, nobody saw hybrid working coming. Nobody saw lockdown coming. You might not have seen your partner losing their job or your parent getting ill or whatever it might be. One event hits us after the other. But this is the bit that makes us superhuman, right? This is our power. We get to choose how we respond to that event in the moment. Now, it might not feel like it. It might feel like if somebody comes shouting at you, that you have no choice but to shout back or to run. But you do. You always have a choice. Now, intellectually, I'm sure everybody in this group gets that. But how often have you actually blamed something else or someone else for your behavior? So what I want you to do is to take a moment and ask yourself, in this particular relationship we're working on right now, what or who are you blaming for your behavior in this relationship? So let me give you some examples and then I'll shut up so you can concentrate. But it might be that you're overworked, you're taking on too much. It might be that you spend 10 hours a day staring at a screen. It might be that you're short in money. It might be that you're not very well. It might be you're blaming them and their behavior for how you're showing up. Well, of course you make me angry. You make me so frustrated. I feel so neglected, and therefore I'm going to get angry with you. So just take a moment. I will shut up now, and you can write down what is it that you are blaming for your behavior in the relationship. So that's the second thing. we have to really take ownership of the choices we are making in our relationships. So the third building block is what we call the extraordinary equation. Every behavior, so the extraordinary equation is event plus behavior equals result. So somebody shouts at me, I choose to shout back. That's going to be one result. Somebody shouts at me, I choose to run away. That's another result. I choose to cry. Another result. Somebody shouts at me and I choose to stand there and think, wow, I think they're having a really bad day and I'm going to look out for them. How could I show them love and compassion right now? That's a different result. So every single behavior we choose has an impact. And no matter what the situation, we always get to choose our behavior, even though it often doesn't feel like it. So the key question is how then do we get to create better relationships? This is what it is. We need to choose the ingredients that make a great cake. We need to choose our behavior. So if we're both putting in grit, ground glass, muddy water, and, whatever, gravel sprinkles into our cake, we're going to have one type of cake. The minute I choose to put in sugar and chocolate chips and flour and eggs, I've improved the cake. Unquestionably, I've improved the cake. Now, I'm also encouraging that person to do the same. So the second part is we need to take full responsibility for our choices. I can tell you now, put my career on it. If you change the behavior that you are putting into that relationship, if you change your behavior, you will change the outcome. And the third building block is we have to remember E plus B equals R. Every behavioral choice we make has an impact. It gets a certain result. So as I say, we get that intellectually, but I know the question that is on your mind because I've been talking to this for a number of years now. And what always happens when we're in the room, people are going, but can I just ask a question? And this is the question that they ask. What if they don't do the same? I've been on this program and I've learned all this incredible stuff, but what if my boss still behaves like a beep, beep, beep? What if my husband still does X? Or what if my child is still whining all the time? What if they don't know this stuff and they don't change their behavior? Well, one of the truths about relationships is we can't change anyone else. They can't change us. We can only choose to change. You can change the outcome by changing your behavioral ingredients, but you can't force them to change. So if you change your behavior and you change your behavior with a good heart, with love, with consistency, it's not just, I was nice 3 weeks ago and you were horrible to me, so now I've been horrible for the last 3 weeks. But if we change our behavior, we might choose at some point in the future to step away from that. But at least we'll be stepping away knowing that we felt good about who we were in that relationship. It's really interesting. People often talk about relationships as if they're 50-50, I put in 50%, he puts. It's not true. We always get the option to put in up to 100%. 100% of me, 100% of love, of respect, of compassion. That's what we get the option to put in. Now, they get the same option. And often, by role modeling that, you allow that other person to relax, you pull up and you get closer to them. I once heard a brilliant quote was, if you don't like somebody, pull up a chair and get to know them better. And that will change everything. But the point is we get the option to put in 100%. So those are the 3 building blocks of building an effective, far more respectful, joyful relationship. So how does that manifest in a hybrid world? Well, right now, it's quite interesting. You're talking to me in my sitting room, right? So all of a sudden, you're seeing a part of me you never would have seen in a normal world. We'd have shown up into an event space and I'd have got up on a stage behind a podium and I'd have talked. You wouldn't have seen me. So it's really interesting that all of a sudden, whilst we think it's much harder in a hybrid world, and sometimes it is, actually there are opportunities that we have never had in the old world. So the question we need to be asking ourselves, when answering this question, how does it all manifest in a hybrid world? The first thing we need to recognize is that the fundamentals of a good relationship, they haven't changed. Those building blocks are still absolutely clear. So what we need to ask, and the thing that hasn't changed, is what drives fulfillment. So same as before, 2 years ago, same as before, people still want community. They want belonging. They want shared purpose. They want clarity, direction, recognition. I want to feel good about myself if I'm working with you. Yeah. I want to grow. I want to grow on a personal level and a professional level. I want to have balance, choice, flexibility, and trust. I could have been speaking to you about this 2 or 3 years ago. So we have to now start to think about what are the behaviors that we can choose as leaders in our organizations or in our relationships that will enable other people to feel fulfilled. And it's worth it. I've got to tell you, it is absolutely worth it. Because out of the same piece of research, what they realize is when employees feel an increased sense of community, connection, and belonging, their odds of fulfillment rise by 489%. And we saw the impact of fulfillment earlier on in the presentation. So how do we do it in a hybrid world? Well, the answer is we need to become intentional about our relationships. We always did, by the way. This is, again, not change. We've always needed to be intentional about our relationships. But now we've been shaken out of our sort of sleepwalking way of walking to the office. Hi, good morning. Do you want a coffee? Should we go and grab a sandwich together? We've been shaken out of that. And now we need to think about it. And I think the opportunity is to think about it in a really opportunistic way. How can we make it a heck of a lot better than it used to be? So what do I mean by intentional? Well, I mean by use the ABC of relationships. Now, I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour of this. There's a whole chapter on this. And in fact, it takes you through how to do this in the book. But you need to talk to what's the aspiration here. So let's talk about a work relationship for a moment, okay? What's the aspiration here? When you start to work with a new team member or a new boss, what are you aspiring to? What kind of relationship are you going to create? And people have said to me, well, that's a bit weird. That's really weird. I'm not sure I could go and do that in work. And then once they've done it, they've come back and gone, oh my God, that made such a difference. So the first question is, together, what kind of relationship are you trying to create? What kind of cake are you trying to bake? And then if that's the kind of relationship we're trying to create, what agreements do we need to put in place? How are we going to communicate? What are we going to do when something goes wrong? What are we going to go do when we find ourselves second guessing somebody or we feel uncomfortable? So what agreements do we need to put in place to create this vision of the relationship we're talking to? This absolutely works in personal relationships as well. The B is about beliefs. So what beliefs do I have about you? Like I've heard about you in the organization. I've heard you're a bit tough to work for. So what beliefs do I already have about you? What beliefs do I have about me that might get stuck, that might keep me back from being my full self in this relationship? And what beliefs do I have about the fact that, you live in Yorkshire and I live in Cornwall and we're probably going to meet twice a year? What beliefs do I have about what's possible in a virtual world? So you need to understand that and talk to that in the relationship. And then what behaviors do we both need to put in? How do we like to communicate? How often are you a phone person, a text person? How do we make time and space to get to know each other? It's really fascinating how our communication online, when we go from one Teams or Zoom's meeting to the other, the meetings have become so transactional, and it's all about, agenda and, that chatting piece, that actual, let's grab a coffee together, that let me get to know you piece has reduced. And then finally, how are we going to communicate and how are we going to have really effective conversations? Communication, of course, is about all of the other stuff the body language, the eye rolling, the short, curt responses that aren't in conversations. And conversations, again, is a whole skill in its own right. So that's the ABC of relationships. And I would urge you to look at a bigger piece of that so you can really start to understand the choices you're making in the world you now live in. So what I wanted to do, just to finish us off, is to look at two key areas that that you have control over. I know that our audiences are usually talent, L&D, HR people. So what I wanted to do is to pick out environment and skills, because I think they're the ones that you really have some massive control over. So how is this going to manifest in a hybrid world? So let's talk to culture first. There has never been a more important time for human leadership. When we talk about technology and AI and everything taking the roles of human beings, leadership and creativity is one of the roles that only humans can do, right? Only humans are able to create connection, to create teams, to create inspiration. And that is what we really need to focus on now with our leadership teams. And this level of human leadership needs to be role modeled throughout your organizations so people can start to connect to it. The job of leadership hasn't changed. We need to create a vision, a plan, and the environment that people want to work within. We just need to think a bit more carefully about how we do that. And the rise and the need for self-leadership has come right up. So, we're not looking over people. We don't see where they are most of the time. So trust and understanding how to give trust is going to be essential in this new environment. We need to totally rethink how we use physical space. People don't need to come into the office anymore to use tools and desks, and, they don't even need it to collaborate. We've already proven we can collaborate virtually. But what they need it for is community. When they come into the office, that's a manifestation of your brand. So they need to come in to find inspiration, to be able to play and create. So this requires, firstly, a massive rethink about how we use our physical spaces. Like, the worst thing you can do is allow people to come into the office and then spend the whole day on Zoom calls talking loudly in an open plan office. That's not going to work for anybody. In fact, there was a brilliant example of Salesforce.com. I'm sure most of you have heard of Salesforce. And they're selling most of their offices and they're buying ranches. And you're all going to go and want to work for Salesforce. And when I heard that, I was like, I wouldn't mind working for Salesforce. They're buying ranches and they're bringing people together on a regular basis for a couple of days so that they can create community, belonging, inspire each other, create, play, and create that sense of belonging. But on a really simple level, what's the level of inspiration people are getting when they are connecting in a physical space? And then, of course, we need to start using technology better. All the reports say what we're doing is using new technology in old ways. So we need to learn the difference between synchronous and asynchronous use of technology, how we can collaborate with people that work in many, many different areas. And so the technology becomes the ability to be free rather than be a jailer. So that point about digital presenteeism, needing to be fully on. I think the stats are showing us that most people are now working longer days, between 1 and 2 hours longer in the day. And then we need to think about how we use virtual space. So really understanding, as I made the point, right? You're in my sitting room right now. I'm probably in your sitting room or your office at home right now. How do we use that virtual space to create the kind of connections? And again, what behaviors are we putting in? Are we making time to have tea with the team or, offline chats or one-to-ones or small groups so that people can create real connections? And then we come on to the amazing area of developing the skills. Now, I genuinely believe that this period of our history is the shining moment for L&D. It's where we've got a new role. So when people go on a development program, it is often one of the few times that they get together with a large group of people. So the new role means that we have to make sure that our learning and development allows for proper networking, for proper connection, for proper sharing of information and data. So and that's virtual and face-to-face, by the way. Okay, so you really need to think about the structures and the way you put your programs together. I know the team at Ivy House has spent, well, years literally tweaking and changing and ensuring that all of these pieces are put in place. I mean, I know a lot of people try to make things, try and create informal networking via WhatsApp groups and, intranets and all the rest of it, and it failed wildly. So how do we do that well? Then we need to think about the kind of leadership development we're putting in place. The role of the human leader is going to be the golden thread culturally throughout your organization. So you really need to think about those core skills that run throughout your organization. It's like, this is how we lead. And everybody around here understands these essential skills to make us truly human leaders. And there's a whole new focus then on personal development. Because all of a sudden, I haven't got somebody to go and chat to or whatever. It feels a bit awkward if I just call them. So how do I build my own personal resilience? How do I create core strength? How do I get my mind to work for me rather than against me? And how do I take true ownership of my well-being? Again, there's been and this is our next event actually, is why so many organizations are getting well-being wrong, because we are not teaching people what innate well-being really, really is. And then finally, we need to think about how we're going to deliver. So that's virtual and face-to-face. I say all the time, all virtual delivery is not born equal. There is a massive difference between somebody, just flipping through some stuff and actually creating a fantastic, connected, engaged experience for people. So you need to think about multi-dimensional learning, how I can learn in big groups, small groups, one-on-one, how I can have a whole host of information, videos, books, podcasts, all the rest around me so that I can immerse myself in the kind of learning that is essential for the way we're going to live now. So, gosh, I'm conscious I've probably run out of time. So the bottom line is change happens when behavior changes. And that's where we need to focus. I've probably just gone through a whole load of stuff. You're sitting there going, oh my goodness, that's a lot of stuff to get our head around. But the reality is if we start with having a really clear vision and we start with creating those core skills that people need and become outcome focused, what do we want? We want people to become fulfilled, to really feel fulfilled within this organization, and then keep learning. Then we will be able to progress onwards and onwards to create really effective relationships.